Hi, welcome back. Last week we looked at the first 10 of 20 games of the decade. Let's have a quick refresh of the rules before we jump back in. First of all, the games must have, of course, released between January 1st, 2010 and December 31st, 2019. The games must have been played by me within those dates, so there are several titles which simply are not eligible. No ports, compilations, remakes or remasters. However, reboots and reimaginings are absolutely okay and fair game. There is one game per franchise. And finally, the list is entirely subjective, and the entries aren't ranked or ordered. So no, I'm not saying that number 1 is the best game of the past decade. We've had a lot of open-world games that surprised me. I don't usually do Ubisoft formula titles, you know, big map, lots of story missions, tons of collectibles, some outposts and towers strewn about, but I had fun with a few of them this decade. Watch Dogs and Just Cause 3 deserve honourable mentions, but the one that really grabbed my attention was Far Cry 3. I'm not going to bore you by talking about Vaas, we all know he was a great antagonist. I'm far more concerned with how fun it was to bomb around the island, ducking and weaving in and out of gunfights, slowly making my character more powerful, and turning the tables on what had previously been my captors. There's something about Far Cry 3 specifically that hasn't been recaptured since. I was excited for Far Cry 4, and Pagan Min was an obvious sign they were trying to recapture the magic, but I dropped out of that game maybe a third of the way through. I've just started Far Cry 5, so who knows what I'll make of that, but I do think Far Cry 3 is a lightning in a bottle scenario. He's Commander Shepard, and this is my favourite game on the Xbox 360. Well, probably anyway. A mix between third-person shooter and action RPG, I'll be honest, didn't think that combination could work. Turns out it's like peanut butter and chocolate. Importing my save from the first game and having my choices not only carry over, but have consequences, gave me goosebumps. The decisions continue as the stakes rise too. You're told from the get-go this is all leading to a suicide mission, and everything you do, from building your squad's loyalty to improving your ship's shields, impacts your chances of survival. The game's not bluffing either. Everyone can die if you screw this up. It lends weight to everything you do. You're constantly asking yourself, are we ready? I'm usually the kind of guy who sticks with the same party throughout an entire RPG, but knowing that Suicide Run was coming up made me take a look at characters I'd have otherwise neglected, making sure they had the best gear and highest chances of pulling through. It's kind of a shame the third game couldn't even come close to replicating those feelings or sense of urgency, but nothing can take away from the masterful execution of Mass Effect 2's core concept. The best Spidey game since SpiderMan II? Yes. One of the best superhero games ever made? Definitely. Makes you feel like Spider-Man. I mean, we all got tired of hearing that, but they kind of had a point. My little brother came to visit when Spider-Man was still a relatively new release. He asked to try it out for half an hour or so. Several hours later, the only reason he stopped playing was to hop online and order himself a copy. It's that good. I think the only bad thing I can say about this game is that the DLC is a little underwhelming. The core base game's fantastic, and then it's followed up by extras I could honestly take or leave. Oh, and the comic adaptation sucked, which is hardly the game's fault. Seriously, this is some of the worst lettering I've ever seen. I'm expecting a little flack for picking a spin-off over the main series entry, which by all accounts is incredible, and while I do own both, I've only gotten round to completing Dragon Quest Heroes. I haven't actually played any of Dragon Quest XI yet, but it is on my backlog, I am going to play through it, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Sometimes you just need a game that's fairly simple and lets you switch off. Dragon Quest Heroes was my autopilot game this decade. I spent a ton of hours zoning out and killing hordes of enemies to a great soundtrack, world, and cast of characters. This game was the sole reason I went on to pick up Hyrule Warriors on the Switch, and that was fun to play on the go, but didn't hook me the same way Dragon Quest Heroes did. Hell, not even Heroes' own sequel could manage that, but in that case I can tell you it's because it favoured a pseudo-open world over the original's bite-sized mission-based structure. Heroes got me curious about Dragon Quest as a JRPG series again. I like Final Fantasy, I like Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball artist Akira Toriyama going ham on the series that preceded FF should be an easy sell, but we didn't get any entries in the UK until Dragon Quest VIII on PlayStation 2, by which point it felt derivative despite having come first. Heroes restored that interest and caused me to buy Dragon Quest XI. I know this entry's probably just me. Most of you are scratching your heads, but if I don't know what to play or what I'm in the mood for, or even if I've just had a bad day, Dragon Quest Heroes can usually scratch my gaming itch. I guess it's sort of like my gaming comfort food. Me and my wife enjoyed playing through the first 2 Uncharted games together. The third one, though, that really let us down. It repeated too many beats from Uncharted 2's story. At launch, the gameplay was really wonky and Nathan would only grab certain ledges some of the time. The whole bit on the boat just seemed like padding. It was really frustrating. So we went into Uncharted 4 feeling nervous. Thankfully, this was a high-quality and incredibly polished game. They just got everything right and it was a joy to play. I grew up on Tomb Raider, but I have to admit Uncharted did Tomb Raider's thing so much better that Tomb Raider's now borrowing heavily from Uncharted. It's kind of a weird situation. This was a fantastic send-off for Nathan Drake. Naughty Dog put out one of their best ever games, and it was constantly fun. The mixture of puzzles, story, set pieces, and gunfights was spot on. Nothing outstayed its welcome. Just as something was at risk of getting old, the game switched tracks. All of the elements were fully developed too, nothing felt undercooked. When the credits rolled, I got this weird sense of satisfaction that I rarely get from games anymore. This comes highly recommended. This next title is one of those games that every YouTuber was talking about, to the point that I actually switched off and thought, it can't be that good. This is seeming overhyped, and I'm out. But then I played it at a friend's house, and oh boy, they weren't lying. I had to get myself a copy immediately. The flow of this game is incredible. It just feels great to play. The difficulty is pitched perfectly, it'll challenge you, it'll kick your ass, but it always feels fair. It's got that sense of just one more go, being incredibly finely tuned and balanced. It introduces new moves and mechanics at just the right time to keep things fresh and interesting. There's a lot AAA game developers could learn from this title. That said, there's always room for improvement. For me, it holds out on the time travel mechanic and gorgeous 16-bit art style for too long. About halfway through, the game switches from a linear adventure to a more open and exploratory Metroidvania, and the pace suffers heavily from that. Overall though, a fantastic game, an indie highlight, and something you should definitely be checking out. I missed the boat on the Persona series. I picked up Persona 4 Golden with my Vita a couple of years ago, but the save system and such didn't really suit the portable format. I grabbed 5 when it came out, and it's the first one I've actually beaten. The 95 or so hours I spent with it were amazing, and more than enough for me to go back and get Persona 3 FES on PSN, and a PlayStation TV to revisit Persona 4 Golden proper. The JRPG's not dead, folks. Turn-based combat's still viable, incredibly enjoyable, and can be extremely fast-paced and exciting. The flow of combat in Persona 5 is unlike anything I've ever played before. It just kept me coming back for one more go. It was refreshing to play an RPG set in modern-day Japan, rather than yet another Renaissance fantasy world. Sorry, Dragon Quest. I was unsure about the social mechanics. It's not usually what I come to games for, yet the bonuses the social links provide compelled me to give them a go, and I actually ended up maxing out almost everyone except for Yusuke, because seriously, screw Yusuke. Oh, and Makoto is best girl, fight me. Oh man, I got another 95 to 100 hours when Persona 5 Raw comes out, don't I? Okay. I've talked about this game before in a top 10 of the year, and my opinion hasn't really changed, so I'll keep this brief. Yeah, the story's incomplete, no two ways about it. It's true the second half of the game is mostly harder versions of previous missions, but the part that really matters, the moment-to-moment gameplay, is not only some of the best in the Metal Gear franchise, it's some of the best of the generation. Metal Gear Solid 5 is a very systemic game. You've got lots of moving parts. Each piece has its own set of rules, and components are combined together in interesting ways. The game even responds to you. For example, focus on headshots and the enemies start wearing helmets. I've messed around a little in earlier Metal Gears, but 5 is the first one where I could truly drop in without a set objective and just play with the system, see how I could manipulate the world around me. It's a shame the drama between Konami and Kojima and the cut-short development time became the focus of discussion because there's a fantastic game under it all. After getting Hitman 2016 on PlayStation Plus and absolutely adoring it, I asked for Hitman 2 for my birthday. It's one of the discs that spent the most time in my PS4 since. I sucked at the older Hitman games. The controls were a little stiff, it was hard to translate what I wanted to do into my actions in the game world, whether enemies detected me or not was like spinning a roulette wheel, and there was no chance of recovery once your cover was blown. I'm very happy to say that modern Hitman is much more versatile, forgiving, and fun. There truly are multiple ways to take out your targets, which is encouraged by both a mission story and challenge system that incentivizes you to replay levels. You're constantly unlocking new gear that will spark fresh takedown ideas. The one caveat I'll apply is that having Hitman 2016 through Plus made all of its levels available to play in Hitman 2. Likewise, I grabbed the Season Pass in a sale. That extra content went a long way towards making the game feel like a complete experience. Without those, the base game might have ended before I was ready for it to. Remember how I specified remakes are banned, but reimaginings are fine? Yeah, this entry right here is why. I was really worried about Resident Evil 2. The original was one of the games I got with my PS1 back when I was far too young to be playing it. So I've got incredibly fond memories of Raccoon City. When I heard they were changing the camera, the gameplay, the maps, the story, pretty much everything, I genuinely thought they were going to ruin it. You know those guys who are like, keep the fixed camera angles and tank controls. Just do for 2 what you did for 1 on the GameCube. Yeah, I was one of those guys, albeit I didn't constantly spam my opinions all over Twitter. In fact, when it came out so close to Kingdom Hearts 3, I had to prioritize and just get one of the 2 games. It's only because I unexpectedly got an Amazon voucher as a thank you at the end of a long project in my day job that I grabbed Resident Evil 2 as well. Hands up, I was wrong. I was so very wrong. This reimagining is insane. Probably my game of the year for 2019. I was hooked. Kingdom Hearts 3? Yeah, that didn't get a look in. Resident Evil 2 completely shoulder-barged it out of my disc tray. I'm not an audiophile or sound guy, not sensitive to that stuff at all, but I played this in the dark wearing my wireless headphones, and the sound design was so good I could tell enemy locations just from their snarling. The game applied a constant base level of tension. You were never safe, you could never relax, you always had just enough ammo to barely scrape through, and I was hooked. I was having very similar concerns about the Final Fantasy VII reimagining that's out in a couple of months, because that's also changing a lot of stuff. But Resident Evil 2 proved that change can be a very good thing, to the point I'm now actively looking forward to FF7. Alright, so that's gonna do it. Those are my top 20 games of the past decade. I'm hoping for more amazing games as we go from 2020 through to 2029, when I'll be, oh Christ, 40. That's gonna be weird. Hopefully you've enjoyed that. Let me know what your picks are in the comments below. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you really soon.